My fiancé said, "Your mom can come only if she apologizes for embarrassing me." I chose a smaller guest list, a bigger spine, and a wedding without hostages or ransoms. I'm Ethan, 31, an engineer from Seattle. 6 months ago, I proposed to my girlfriend Clara, 29, and thought I'd found the person I'd grow old with. She was warm, witty, and made every room feel lighter, until that night, when everything shifted. We'd planned a small dinner at my parents' house, a chance for both families to finally meet. My mom, a soft-spoken school librarian, spent days preparing homemade lasagna and setting the table with her best china. My dad even opened a bottle of the wine he'd been saving since my graduation. It was supposed to be perfect. After dinner, my mom brought out a little velvet box. "This belonged to your grandmother," she said, smiling shyly. "She wore it at her wedding. I'd love for you to have it, Clara." Clara smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks, Mrs. Holt," she said sweetly, and then loud enough for everyone to hear. "But I really don't want anything used. I don't like other people's energy on me." The air froze. My mom's hands trembled as she tried to hide the necklace back in the box. My dad's jaw tightened. Even Clara's parents looked uncomfortable. I tried to laugh it off, saying she was joking, but she wasn't done. "I mean, it's pretty," she added, "but I just don't want anything old showing up in our wedding photos." That was the first time I felt the ground shift under us, the first public crack in the perfect image I'd built of her. I told myself it was nerves or stress, or maybe the wine talking. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered, this wasn't stress. This was who she really was. A week after that dinner, the tension that had been simmering under the surface finally boiled over. I came home from work to find Clara pacing the living room, arms crossed, her phone clutched in her hand like a weapon. Her eyes were red, not from crying, but from fury barely held together. "She tried to embarrass me," she snapped before I could even take off my coat. "Your mom did that on purpose. Who gives someone a used necklace and calls it a gift?" I set my keys down quietly. "Clara, she meant it as a blessing, as a family tradition. Every woman in my family has worn that necklace at their wedding. My grandmother, my mom, even my aunt." Clara laughed, sharp and cold. "Then your family's traditions are toxic. I'm not some sentimental charity case that needs a hand-me-down." Her voice echoed through the apartment. I remember just standing there, looking at her. This woman I'd thought was kind, compassionate, grounded, and realizing I didn't recognize her at all. I tried to reason with her. My mom's heart was in the right place. "If you just talk to her." "Talk to her," Clara interrupted. "No. If your mom wants to come to our wedding, she needs to apologize. Publicly, in front of your family." I blinked. "You're joking." "Do I look like I'm joking?" she said, dead serious. "I'm not walking into a wedding where I've been disrespected by the groom's family. Either she apologizes, or she's not invited." She turned and opened her laptop, scrolling through the shared document where we were finalizing the guest list. Without hesitation, she drew a line through my parents' names. "There," she said, her tone eerily calm. "Problem solved." I remember sitting on the edge of the couch, watching her type as if she were editing a spreadsheet, not cutting my parents out of my life. "Clara, that's not how this works. You don't get to uninvite my family from my own wedding." She closed the laptop, folded her arms, and said, "Then maybe we shouldn't have a wedding until your family learns some respect." That night, she posted a story on Instagram, white text on a black background. "Some people think rudeness is just old-fashioned manners." She didn't name names, but she didn't need to. Everyone who'd been at that dinner knew who she was talking about. The next morning, my cousin sent me a screenshot of it. "Dude, what's going on?" he texted. "Your fiancé just called out your mom online?" By the time I called my mom to explain, she'd already seen it. She was quiet on the phone for a long time. Then, in the softest voice, she said, "Ethan, I never meant to upset her. I just thought she might want to feel like part of the family." I could hear her trying not to cry. That broke something in me. When I told Clara that my mom was hurt, she rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, she's playing the victim." That's what manipulative people do when they get called out. She's my mother, I said, sharper than I meant to. And I'm your future wife, she shot back. Start acting like it. There it was, the ultimatum, delivered like a line rehearsed 100 times in her head. That week, everything became a power struggle. She'd bring it up at random moments. While we were grocery shopping, while brushing our teeth, even in bed. It's a simple apology, she'd say. If she really loved you, she'd do it for you. I stopped engaging, hoping the storm would pass. Instead, she escalated. One night, I walked into the living room to find her video calling her mom, crying about how the Holts are trying to humiliate me. Her mother's voice came through the speaker, sharp and approving. You stand your ground, sweetheart. You don't let them walk all over you. Ethan will come around. The next day, Clara's friends started liking her cryptic posts. Some families are more toxic than they look. Blood doesn't give you the right to disrespect people. It felt like a coordinated campaign, subtle but public. Meanwhile, my family group chat went silent. No one knew what to say. My dad, who usually had an opinion about everything, just sent one message. Son, think carefully before you build a life with someone who doesn't respect where you came from. But I still wasn't ready to see it for what it was. I told myself she was emotional, that wedding planning makes people irrational. I even suggested we take a break from family talk. Clara seemed to agree for about 2 days. Then, one evening, she sat across from me at dinner and said, You know, it's not too late to elope. We could just skip all this drama. I smiled weakly. You mean skip my family? She shrugged. If that's what it takes to have peace. That word, peace, stuck in my head. Not love, not happiness, not family. Peace as in the absence of resistance. It dawned on me that Clara didn't want peace. She wanted control dressed up as harmony. And the more I yielded, the smaller my world became. Still, I told myself to hold on. That maybe things would calm down once the wedding stress was over. That people change when they realize they're hurting someone they love. But deep down, I knew something had shifted permanently. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the start of a pattern. And like a fool, I ignored the first warning signs, not realizing the storm had only just begun. By the time Friday rolled around, I was exhausted. Work was a blur. My sleep was gone. And I was walking on eggshells in my own apartment. Clara texted me around noon. Dinner with the girls tonight, you're coming. They want to meet you properly. I almost said no, but I told myself maybe this was her olive branch. A chance to show her friends we were fine, that things between us were normal again. Maybe she'd cooled off. Maybe we could reset. We met at a sleek downtown restaurant. One of those places with exposed brick walls and dim lighting meant to feel intimate. Clara was radiant that night. Perfectly dressed, smiling, laughing, playing the doting fiancé. For the first 20 minutes, everything actually felt okay. Then the conversation turned to wedding planning. So, her friend Tara asked, swirling her wine, how's the big day coming together? You guys decided on a theme yet? Clara flashed her signature smile, the one that usually preceded something sharp. Well, we were going for something elegant, neutral tones, gold accents, but Ethan's mom has opinions. I laughed nervously. She was just suggesting some ideas. Clara cut me off, still smiling for her audience. Oh, he's being polite. Tell them, Ethan. Tell them how your mom tried to dictate our wedding style. Her friends giggled. Oh no, monster-in-law alert, one of them said. I felt the air leave my lungs. She'd set me up, turned our private family conflict into entertainment. I sat there, frozen, every word around the table blurring together. Clara kept going, embellishing, laughing at my expense. She actually sent me a Pinterest board, Clara said, rolling her eyes, like full-on farmhouse chic, burlap and lace. I told Ethan if his mom shows up in cowboy boots, I'm walking out. Her friends howled. I smiled tightly, pretending it didn't sting, pretending I wasn't dying of embarrassment. When the check came, I paid without a word. On the drive home, she hummed along to the radio like nothing had happened. When we parked, I finally spoke. You really blindsided me back there. She looked at me like I was speaking another language. What do you mean? You mocked my mom, in front of strangers. You made it a joke. She folded her arms. It was a joke. God, you're so sensitive. Maybe if your mom hadn't tried to control everything, I wouldn't have said anything. She's not controlling, Clara. She was trying to help. Clara's smile disappeared. If you're not on my side, you're on hers. That line, quiet, cold, final, lodged itself in my chest like a splinter. She walked inside, left me standing by the car, staring at the taillights of passing traffic. For the first time, I didn't follow her. That night, I lay awake next to her, listening to her breathe while my mind spun in circles. Something deep inside me shifted. A small, hard click, like a lock turning. I realized I was done trying to reason with someone who needed enemies to feel powerful. The next morning, I woke early, sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, and started researching. Washington recording laws one-party consent. The answer blinked back at me, yes, legal. I sat there staring at the screen for a long minute before reaching for my phone. I didn't know exactly what I was planning. I just knew I needed proof. Something tangible to remind myself I wasn't crazy. When she woke up, she came into the kitchen, scrolling through her phone. We need to talk about the rehearsal dinner, she said casually, pouring coffee. I hit record. What about it? I asked. She leaned against the counter, looking at me like a teacher scolding a student. Your mom called me yesterday. She what? Yeah. She said she hopes we can all move past the misunderstanding. Clara gave a short, derisive laugh. Misunderstanding. As if embarrassing me in front of everyone was an accident. She was trying to make peace, I said carefully. She's not sorry, Clara snapped. She's manipulating you. If she wants forgiveness, she needs to say it in public. At the engagement dinner. Otherwise, she's out. I could hear the steel in her voice, that entitled certainty that everything she wanted was automatically reasonable. It's my day, she added. Not hers. I won't have anyone ruining it because they're too proud to admit they were wrong. I didn't respond. I just stirred my coffee and watched her talk, every word more absurd than the last. And the whole time, the phone in my pocket kept recording. When she finished her rant, she turned to me and said, You agree, right? I nodded. Sure. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and walked away humming. I sat there, letting the silence return. Then I replayed the audio. Her voice was crisp, every word clear. It's my day, not hers. I didn't know why I'd done it, maybe self-defense, maybe instinct, but I knew that file mattered. I saved it to the cloud, labeled it breakfast_recording_01, and backed it up twice. It felt wrong to be preparing evidence against someone I was supposed to marry, but it also felt like the first rational thing I'd done in weeks. That day, I started noticing more. How she'd joke about canceling the wedding if she didn't get her way. How she'd scroll through Instagram comparing other brides' engagement rings to hers. How she'd smile at me in public but speak to me like an employee at home. Every smile had a purpose. Every kindness was a transaction. When we went out with friends, she'd correct my stories, subtly reframe details to make herself the heroine. That's not how it happened, Ethan, she'd say, laughing. He's terrible with details. And I'd laugh along, because it was easier than starting another fight. But after that recording, something inside me changed. I wasn't her audience anymore. I was an observer, a quiet note-taker collecting proof of the person behind the performance. The next time she smiled across the table, I smiled back. But for the first time, I wasn't fooled. I wasn't angry yet, just awake. And somewhere deep down, I knew. The moment I stopped trying to fix her was the moment everything would finally start to unravel. By that point, I'd stopped hoping for apologies. I just wanted the truth, laid bare, without filters, without her twisting it into another narrative where I was the villain. Clara had spent the last week acting like nothing happened. She'd text me photos of flower arrangements, tag me in memes, kiss me goodbye in the mornings like we weren't quietly bleeding out as a couple. That kind of calm, the smug, unshakable confidence of someone who believed she could spin any situation her way, was what finally pushed me to make the call. I dialed Mrs. Wilson on a Tuesday morning. She answered on the third ring, her voice polite and measured. "Hi, Mrs. Wilson. It's Ethan," I said. "I just wanted to ask you something quickly. Has Clara mentioned anything about wanting an apology from my mom?" There was a pause, the kind of pause where you can hear the world rearranging itself in someone's head. Then she sighed, long and weary. "Oh dear, no," she said softly. "Of course not. Clara just gets emotional sometimes. She says things she doesn't mean. We'd love for both your parents to be there. Goodness, we were all so excited about the wedding. Please don't take her too seriously when she's upset." I stared at the floor, one hand gripping my phone tighter. "Thank you, ma'am. That helps a lot. I'll talk to her," she added, her tone suddenly nervous. "But please don't tell her we spoke about this. It makes things worse when she feels cornered." "I understand," I said. "And I won't. But I recorded it anyway. Not out of malice, out of self-preservation." The file sat next to the one from breakfast, both labeled, both time-stamped. Two fragments of truth in a sea of manipulation. That evening, I decided it was time. When Clara came home, I was already at the kitchen table. Laptop open, phone beside me. I'd rehearsed the conversation a dozen times in my head, but when I saw her smiling like nothing was wrong, the words evaporated. "Hey, babe," she said, hanging her coat. "You look serious. What's up?" I didn't answer. I just pressed play. Her voice poured out of the speaker. Sharp, dismissive, confident. "Your mom embarrassed me. If she won't apologize, she's out. It's my day, not hers." She froze. The sound of her own voice seemed to cut through the air like a blade. "Ethan," she said slowly. What is this?" "I needed to know I wasn't losing my mind," I said quietly. "So I recorded our conversation. I just wanted to make sure I remembered things the way they actually happened." Her face went pale, then red. "You recorded me? Without telling me? That's disgusting, Ethan. That's abusive." I checked the law. "It's legal here," I said calmly. "And it's the only way to have an honest conversation with you anymore." She laughed. One of those hollow, incredulous laughs people use when they realize they're cornered. "You're insane. You're paranoid. Who even does that?" I didn't reply. I just clicked the next file, the call with her mother. Mrs. Wilson's voice filled the kitchen. "Oh dear, no. Of course not. Clara just gets emotional. We'd love for both your parents to be there." The room went silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Clara's expression shifted from shock to fury so fast it was almost physical. Her hands trembled as she pointed at me. "You called my mother? You went behind my back." "I needed clarity," I said. "You've been telling everyone my mom insulted you, that she needs to apologize publicly, that you're the victim. But your mom said you made it all up." She slammed her palms on the table. "You twisted it. You manipulated her." "Did I?" "Because I didn't say a word to her. She said it on her own." Her breathing quickened. "You ruined everything." "No," I said quietly. "You did when you turned love into leverage." For a moment, she just stared at me. And then something broke. The fury drained from her face, replaced by something colder, calculating. "So that's how it is," she said finally, voice low and steady. "You're choosing them over me." "I'm choosing the truth," I replied. She shook her head slowly, like she pitied me. "You think this makes you look noble? Everyone will see what you did. You violated my privacy. You manipulated my family. You'll regret this." She turned and stormed into the bedroom. I heard drawers opening, zippers, the slam of the closet door. 5 minutes later she emerged, suitcase in hand. "Don't call me," she said. "Don't try to fix this. You crossed a line." She left without another word. I sat at the table long after the door closed. Her untouched coffee mug still sat beside the sink, lipstick on the rim. The apartment felt heavy, like the silence itself had weight. I played the recordings one last time, listening not to the words but the tone, the certainty in her voice when she believed she couldn't be challenged. For the first time in months, I didn't feel crazy. I didn't feel small. I just felt free. But I also knew Clara wasn't the kind of person who let go quietly. And if I'd learned anything about her, it was that every storm she started ended with someone else cleaning up the wreckage. I just didn't know yet how big this one was going to be, or how public. When she came back 2 days later, the apartment door opened with the same force she used when she wanted to prove a point. I was sitting on the floor, packing what little I owned into 2 suitcases. The sight stopped her mid-step. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice sharp, eyes scanning the half-empty shelves. "Leaving," I said simply. Her face flickered between confusion and panic. "Ethan, wait. Just stop for a second. We can fix this." "There's nothing to fix." "Yes, there is," she insisted, stepping closer. "I'll call your mom. I'll fix it. I'll apologize. I'll do whatever you want, okay? I was just stressed. I didn't mean." "You're not sorry, Clara," I said, zipping my bag. "You're scared." She froze. "Scared that the image is cracking," I continued. "Scared that people might see who you are when you can't control the story anymore." Her mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but no sound came out. I walked past her, my suitcase wheels bumping softly against the hardwood. At the door, I turned once, half expecting her to apologize, really apologize, not the scripted kind she used as a weapon. But she didn't. She just stood there trembling, eyes dry, voice low. "If you walk out that door, Ethan, you'll regret it. Maybe. But at least it would be my regret." That night, I stayed at my friend Dylan's apartment. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and a blanket for the couch. I slept for 10 hours straight for the first time in weeks. When I woke up, my phone had 47 missed calls. Half from Clara, half from numbers I didn't recognize. Texts, voicemails, messages from mutual friends. "Dude, what happened? Clara's posting about you. You okay? She said you bailed days before the wedding?" My stomach sank. I opened Instagram. There it was, a photo of Clara sitting alone in her wedding dress, eyes red, captioned, "Sometimes the person you love most leaves without explanation. Groom runs away days before the wedding. Pray for me." 10,000 likes in an hour. Comments filled with outrage and pity. "You deserve better, Queen. Dodged a bullet. Men like him shouldn't be allowed to waste good women's time." She'd rewritten the ending before I'd even unpacked my toothbrush. Then her mother called. First it was tears. "Ethan, how could you humiliate my daughter like this? The venue, the guests, the deposits." "She's devastated. She's devastated because she got caught," I said quietly. "Caught? What are you talking about?" I opened my laptop, hovered over the audio files. "Do you want to hear what your daughter actually said about all of you?" Silence. I clicked play anyway. Clara's voice echoed through the speaker. "If my mom wants to come to the wedding, she'll do it on my terms. She's always been dramatic. I just let her think she's in control." Mrs. Wilson inhaled sharply. Then nothing, not even a breath. When the clip ended, I said, "There's more, if you'd like." "No," she whispered. Then, quieter, "Please don't send that to anyone." I didn't promise I wouldn't. After that call, the flood of messages slowed. Her friends who'd been so loud online suddenly went quiet. I didn't post anything. Didn't need to. The silence worked harder than any defense could. 2 days later, Dylan showed me a group chat screenshot. Someone had leaked part of the recording, the breakfast one. Just Clara's voice, saying, "It's my day, not hers." It spread fast. Not viral, but enough. Enough for people to start questioning her version. First, she tried to deny it. Claimed I'd edited the audio, that it was taken out of context. But her tone was unmistakable. That crisp superiority, the same voice everyone had heard at dinner parties and brunches. A few of her closest friends still defended her. She just wanted boundaries. Every bride gets emotional. It's a stressful time. But most people didn't say anything. And silence, I've learned, says enough. By the end of the week, her engagement post was gone. Her followers dropped by hundreds. She posted one last message, white text on a gray background. "Sometimes people record your worst moments and forget your best ones." I didn't reply. I didn't gloat. I just scrolled past it, blocked her, and went for a walk in the cool Seattle rain. Freedom doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's just quiet, the first breath of air after months of holding it in. When I called my mom that night, she answered on the first ring. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" "I am now," I said. "And I'm sorry I let her hurt you." "Oh, Ethan," she sighed. "I just wanted you to be happy." "I will be," I said, looking out at the city lights. "Just not with her." That night, for the first time in months, the silence in my apartment didn't feel heavy. Felt clean. And that was when I realized, peace doesn't come when people apologize. It comes when you stop waiting for them to. A month after the last confrontation, I finally had space to breathe. I rented a small apartment not far from my parents' house, nothing fancy, but mine. I painted the walls a muted gray, arranged my furniture just the way I liked it, and for the first time in months, I slept through the night without tension gnawing at my chest. Weekends became sacred again. I visited my parents, helped my mom in the garden, shared long dinners with my dad where we talked about everything except weddings and chaos. I rejoined the gym, pushed myself harder than I had in years, not just to sweat out stress but to reclaim a sense of control I hadn't realized I'd lost. When the calendar marked the date we had originally set for the wedding, I didn't cancel it or mourn it. I hosted a small barbecue in my parents' backyard. Close friends, family who had been there for me from the beginning, laughter, grill smoke in the air, and no carefully staged Instagram moments. No drama, no performances, no hostages. Just people I cared about and peace. Then, out of the blue, my phone rang. The caller ID read, "Mr. Wilson." "Ethan?" he said, voice low but calm. "I get it, son. We spoiled her. That's on us. I hope you find someone who values respect over pride." "Thanks, Mr. Wilson," I said quietly. "I appreciate that." We didn't discuss Clara beyond that. There was no debate, no lingering resentment. He understood, and for the first time I felt like an adult, not a pawn in someone else's drama. Months later, downtown, I ran into Clara. She looked different. Tired around the eyes, softened in her posture, quieter. "Ethan," she said, hesitating, almost shy. "I started therapy. I understand why you left." I studied her for a moment. There was no smugness, no performance. Just recognition, maybe even regret, and an acknowledgement that the world doesn't revolve around entitlement. "I hope so," I said, nodding. We shared a brief smile, wished each other luck, and parted ways. There were no arguments, no explanations. That was it. Closure arrived quietly, without spectacle. That day, standing in the glow of the late afternoon, I realized something essential. Love isn't about demanding apologies or setting ransoms. It isn't about bending others to your will or controlling narratives. I had chosen a smaller guest list, a stronger backbone, and a life without manipulation. My wedding day had no grand hall, no expensive flowers, no photographer capturing forced smiles. But it had laughter, warmth, and people who truly mattered. For the first time in months, I felt whole. Love, I understood then, was never about the show. It was about dignity, respect, and the courage to walk away from what threatens both. And that was a wedding I could attend every day, without hostages, without regrets, and with my peace fully intact.